Today's podcast is about listening in on a purple conversation. Laurie Safford, whose views and political beliefs are on the right, has agreed to have a purple conversation with Armand, who, for those who are new to the podcast, leans to the left and has made a commitment to be purple, which means you can have your political ideas, but to be respectful and civil to those that think differently than you. Enjoy the podcast.
Martin Luther King championed the civil rights movement. This is the Right to Be Civil movement.
Y'all want to know who you voted for? So they can let you in or show you the door. She votes left and he votes right. It's a hell of a recipe for a holiday fight.
From our recording studio in Castleberry, Florida, and our production house in Coral Springs, you're listening to the Purple Evolution Podcast.
I don't know any left people. I don't know any right people. We're all different shades of humanity. I don't know any red people. I don't know any blue people. We're all different shades of humanity.
My name is Doug Halper. And with your permission, I will be your guide on a journey through all things purple regarding the coexistence of human beings on this wonderful planet we call home. The creator of the Purple Evolution, my friend and our host, is Armand Della Volpe, who for over 40 years has been dedicated to being a stand for love. Along with his bride Angelina, Armand has stood true to this commitment through the mediums of public speaking, performing songwriter, TV and radio appearances, magazine and book publishing, personal counseling, and now the world of podcasting. Please help me welcome my favorite civil servant, or more aptly put, servant for civility, Armand.
Hey, buddy. Hello there, Laurie. Hey, Doug.
Hi, Armand.
Today is a unique situation. You know, we've been doing this for many months, and we've been talking about, how to have a purple conversation. However, we haven't had a purple conversation on air with two different people from different sides of the field. It's kind of like making love or reading about making love. Today, we're going to have a really wonderful intercourse, and it should be awesome.
Oh my.
That's what came to me.
We're going to have to have an extra special warning, TVMA, for mature content during this episode.
Kind of.
I just noticed that I said
funny.
intercourse. Intercourse is a dialogue. It's a connection. So I didn't say anything.
No, you used it perfectly. It was awesome. Keep it.
Well, since that's one of the more tame things Armand has said, yeah, we're going to go with it. I like it.
Hey, let's hear it for three people that are all different politically to some extent, that all are not fans of cancel culture and PC. Hello.
Amen. Amen, brothers and sisters. I'm here to tell you. So what we're doing today, obviously, this is going to be just a sample of what a purple conversation could look like. Armand, a pretty left liberal, and Laurie, a pretty right conservative. We'll have a conversation about a multitude of subjects in order to demonstrate what a purple conversation sounds like. And this is something that we've been asked by our listeners many times. As a matter of fact, in just a moment, we're going to play today's mail. Is actually one of our listeners recorded a voicemail for us on our site. You can go to thepurpleevolution.org and hit contact, and you can record a message there. And they did so, and they asked I want a sample of what it can sound like, because I don't really understand how you would respond in a purple way in certain situations. So this is not an attempt to be perfect. It's an attempt to show respect and to honor that others have opinions different from our own. There will certainly be mistakes. There's no avoiding that. However, even the attempt to offer understanding is a vast improvement over the typical I'm right, you're wrong mentality that seems to permeate our society so prevalently these days. Some of the non-purple traits we will try to avoid in this sample conversation are things like blanket statements. So, for example, the Democrats are the violent ones, or Republicans care more about their wealth than the country's well-being. Something that just puts a blanket over a whole group of people. Another one is name calling. So, for example, he's being a jerk, or that's idiotic. Well, get specific. What is it about them that seems jerkish or idiotic? Because just using those words doesn't move the conversation forward. It just calls a name. But if you can be specific, maybe we can, work on that. And then, of course, big things like swearing and yelling, raising your voice. Those are all non-purple things that happen in conversations. So we're going to try to avoid those. This is going to be a conversation between Armand and Laurie. And the only thing I'm going to be here for is to open up some topics. So I will mention a topic that one of them or both of them have shared that they would like to discuss. And they pretty much have different opinions on most of these topics anyway. So it's not going to be too hard to get a more left view and a more right view. And then I'm going to mute myself and just let them talk. If for any reason something gets unpurple during the conversation, I might raise a sign that looks something like this that says, "Danger, Will Robinson." And that'll be a warning sign. And we're assuming that they'll be able to figure out exactly what was said or done that is not really too terribly purple. And if it gets way out of hand, then we'll just, call Mr. Scott and have him stop everything. So. I'm excited that we're doing this, and I'm really grateful for both of you that you're willing to do this. And my thought is to really have the conversation. I mean, we're all emphatic about how we feel. And as Laurie will tell you, Armand, she and I have had many conversations in her living room where it gets a little bit heated. It's just that she's so much more knowledgeable about the subjects with incidents and names and places and, laws and the Constitution than I am, that it just doesn't really make sense.
I get away with a lot of non-facts.
True. It's true, Laurie.
I get away with a lot of non-facts.
Absolutely.
Angelina says the same thing. She says, you know so much that when you say shit that you don't know, I believe you.
Right.
Actually, that we did have lots of years where we just did not talk about it. It was not a good, we agreed to disagree, or we just agreed to not talk about it. And it was hard to have those conversations. And it is something that I think the difference, or maybe because I would like to be like, I wish it wasn't so important to me. I wish I could just be just as easy as you're red and you're blue. And I don't even think the conversation is I know I will never change your mind on where you stand politically, but I hope to maybe freshen both of our outsides of how we see it, and not, trying to think of what I'm trying to say. There are certain issues that we're never going to budge on, but there might be some things that I can point out that, I've never seen that on the media, things that you point out that, I didn't read that in that article. And just, where I kind of have felt I have felt this actually since 2016, but definitely after this election, that just totally, anytime I turn on the TV, I can't find anything with my point of view, even Fox News.
Wow.
And it's very disconcerting and very, and I just want to commend you both, because it's very easy for me to type an email of what I thought you didn't say right about, my side. I pray you never think that I'm trying to judge you. I know how easy it is to, and you put, sure, I'll say things today that someone might type in and go, well, actually on page 222 of the Constitution, what she said, it's very easy to sit. And I don't want you to think that I was in judgment, and was actually mad at Doug for using the one piece of information I sent that we both had decided was unfair.
Well, really,
the email came out.
If you're debating, use the thing that's going to help you win.
But that's the only reason. Now, and anything he's ever said, I have not. I think the funniest story is when we were, it was after, unfortunately, a funeral, but when I met Barack Obama, the nicest friend you have. What's his name? You both interviewed him.
Sean Banks.
Nicest people. And the first time I met all of Doug's friends, and I was just sitting there, and I could swear at that time, Fox News was just written on my forehead. And I was just sitting there like this. And, oh, yeah, that's funny. And then it hit me, after about an hour of, oh, God, please don't ask me. Please don't ask me. Because, I don't want to be a liar, but I also, don't want to, embarrass Doug. And that I'm like, I could just pick this whole scenario and put it over in my corner, if you will, of my friends. It's the exact tone, exact conversation, exact humor, only different polarizing opposite of views. And that was the first time I saw it as, this is pretty funny, that it's just I'd be embarrassed if one of my friends, if Doug walked into a conversation I was having, in my hometown, having a couple beers, I'm like, oh, well, shh, it was just really funny and eye-opening that, it doesn't make them wrong. It makes us all opinionated, and you tend to go towards people that think like you. I guess I like that your purpleness, and you clarified it to me before, we don't have to agree, just to try and say it nicely. And that's where I think that it's not that I try to be mean to Doug, as I get frustrated because I can't get my point out clearly. I do get tongue-tied sometimes. And Doug also has the same defense that I do as, well, you're wrong. I don't know why, but you're wrong. And, so that's kind of just the conflict too. So I guess my kind of apprehension towards today is I don't want to come across that I know everything or that I'm attacking you. And then I also don't want to hang up and wish I said something that I didn't, and vice versa. I don't want to hang up and, why did I say that? That was rude or whatever. And, I would never say anything rude or call you names, but I did think that your little signs are coming up would be funny. That might lighten things.
What signs are you talking about?
That one, you're on the verge. Oh, you crossed the line. Make a joke.
Your story, Laurie, reminds me when I was in Louisiana for Christmas, because that's my home state. I told my cousin, I said, I need a fish. It's been like 2 days. Do you have a place? He goes, I'm going to take you right to this guy's house. And when he gets there, he goes, by the way, he's a huge Trumper. Now, my cousin is also a Trumper. And he goes, so don't say anything. I said, I thought, as often as I've tried to let people know that my blueness does not mean I'm going to spout out something or that I'm going to argue with something. I'm like, I'm the perfect guy to bring. I don't care who he voted for, as long as he doesn't make me wrong, So it was
speak fish.
and he had a great fishing hole, and there was huge, giant Trump paraphernalia all over his garage. And somehow, my cousin thought I was going to need to go to a safe room afterwards or something, so it just
I thought it was funny too that I misread your thing. I thought you were coming up with other no fair rules of snowflake.
Yeah.
I thought you were like, don't call people a snowflake. And you were saying, I am a snowflake. Let's talk about it. Just the misconceptions that we have.
I love it.
So anyway, I'm excited to see how it goes, and I think it's kind of fair to be put on the spot. You put yourself on the spot, you put yourself out there, and I really do think that you try to see the other side. And I don't know if I've done it ever, except with, I mean, you don't talk about religion, you don't talk about politics, unless you're with your kind, because you're not going to ever change anybody's mind. So it's a different kind of thing we're doing.
There was a third thing we can talk about in the past when it was
college football,
right, Laurie?
Sports. He's always been so wrong.
Yeah. Well, we have to add movies to it because I can't talk to Doug about movies because he tells me the stuff that I like is silly, unrealistic. He laughs at the serious stuff that I cry at. He's laughing. So that's going to be number 4.
So true. We'll get in the middle of a series that he wants to watch, and now I'm hooked. And he's like, oh, the writing just sucks. Are you bored yet? I'm like, what?
Yep, he did that. He did that with This Is Us. One thing was unrealistic, and he just unfriended the entire series. It's like brutal.
I wanted to have them both say just a little bit about themselves in this particular conversation before we get started. So I thought I'd start with Armand and let you share, Armand, how you're feeling about what we're doing today.
As a Southern boy, I would like to yield to the lady.
Oh, thank you, Armand. I appreciate that as a Southern woman.
Are you sure we're that different?
I know, right? I bet you some thank you notes.
Doug does.
I'm sure of it.
I am a school teacher, and I have been a Republican my whole voting life. And I would say I am now shifted more to as a conservative more than a Republican. So I have seen a lot of changes in the views over the years. That I really, as I become more aware of the issues, things that I've seen, and the older that I've gotten, I would say that I am more conservative than Republican, to take one label away from me. I've known Doug for at least 10 years, good friends, good buddies. I love to tell the story. The first time I went out with him and all of his friends, I just could swear that Fox News was written on my forehead. But because I was with Doug, everybody just assumed that I thought like they did. And so I just sat there and smiled and tried to, just play along. And I remember being very afraid that it was just going to be apparent or they would ask me a question. And then it hit me that if I just had taken that little group at Denny's and just changed them with my friends, it would be the exact same conversation, same tone, same type of humor, same type of exuberance, just totally different sides of the spectrum. And it was the first time for me that I was like, oh, they're not wrong. They're just like I am. And I might differ with their opinions, but it just struck me as hilarious that it was the first time that I realized that I am just as sometimes blindly, I'm right, they're wrong. And I think you're more comfortable when you're around all the same type of people. But I think basically it was just the first eye opener to me that I wanted to just laugh, not confess who I was. But when I got in the car, it's the first thing I said and laughed. And it was really funny and eye opening to me. But I've been watching your show, and I condemn you. I commend you.
Wow, wow, it's almost the same letters. It's just what and anyway, one of those words where you took the same letters. Anagram.
About the purple movement. I know that, you know, anything that Doug tries, I always support. And just, I think it was the first show where you guys, you know, made it very clear, and maybe even after I asked a question, is that you don't have to agree. You just have to be civil about it. And I think that's what I think we don't talk about it, number one, because you don't ever change anybody's mind philosophy wise, but it's also because you don't want, not a lot of us, I know Armand and I, we don't like conflict. And, but it's not that you have to be, you know, lily livered in the middle, you know, white or pink or whatever, but you can have your strong views and listen. If you can just listen to the other person. And that, to me, when I finally got in my head that that was your point, that I think it's a great idea and a great opportunity. And one thing that I just told you is that it's very easy for me to send you an email with what I think than for you to sit there and talk for an hour and, you know, just been talking, you know, from your feelings, not thinking, you know, oh, somebody's writing notes about me or whatever. So I commend you that this is very hard for me. And I think that it's going to be fun and I feel very safe with both of you. But I just want to let you know that I do realize it's much easier to sit in the background and take notes as those critics that we all love, you know, that fill up the newspapers with their opinions when they're not the ones, you know, making decisions or, you know, just... I appreciate you both. And I appreciate you asking me to do this.
Thank you.
Awesome. Armand?
Okay, so I guess I've mostly identified as a Democrat. However, I did vote for Ross Perot way back. Something told me early on, very gently, that we need somebody that both sides could agree with better than the candidates that are usually the front runners. And then I eventually, when Angelina and I started dating, we both changed from Democrats to independents. We felt more resonant, like Laurie said, I felt more resonant as a liberal than I felt being part of a party. I will share this. I think that conservative and liberal left and right ideology comes from God. I believe it's genetic to keep a balance on the planet. I believe Democrats and Republicans come from humans. And so I'd rather be part of something that's my nature than something that someone nurtured. And so that's why I went there. Then in 2012, really started getting more excited about not identifying with either party. And so that's where that goes. To speak to a couple of things Laurie said about being purple, and that doesn't mean you have to be in the middle. It's really hard for people to understand that no matter how many times I explain it. They think that purple evolution means you have to be purple ideologically. And we're not promoting that you're a centrist. I like centrists. I wish I were a centrist. It would be easier.
It'd be easier.
They're wonderful, but this is about a purple attitude, not about a purple ideology. And so, So yes, I too am very excited about this.
Wonderful. Thank you both so much. So before we get started, what I'd like to do is we're going to have our listener mail first. And we usually do that at the end of the episode. But as I said, this one came in from one of our listeners. And as we often mention on our show, you can go to thepurpleevolution.org and hit the contact page. And there is a place where you can either email us or record a voicemail for us. And some of our listeners choose to do it that way. And one of them did just that. I'd like to play that for us now as our listener mail. So let's just take a moment to listen to that now.
Hi, this is Beth from Long Island, New York. And I've been listening to your podcast since they started, period. I first want to tell you that I love them. My favorite so far has been the interview with the Obama impersonator, but all of them have been terrific. I had an interesting conversation yesterday with somebody who is totally on the opposite side of the do we have to wear masks in public question. And I want to tell you that it was very uncomfortable, period. We definitely had a purple conversation. I was able to state my opinions and my reasoning for the need to wear masks. And my friend was able to explain why she doesn't think masks are necessary. However, I left the conversation feeling really uncomfortable. And I thought that's something you might like to know. Something else I'd like to mention to you is that I would really love to hear what purple conversations really sound like. I'd like to hear two people who are on opposite sides of an issue having a purple conversation. I understand that these kind of conversations are available on other podcasts, but I have not heard them on your podcasts. I've only heard you and your interviewer discussing what purple is and what purple conversations should or should not look like. So I thought I would mention that to you. Again, thanks a lot for a great job. Oh, and I also wanted to mention I love the Scrabble presentation that you did as well. Thank you and have a great day.
Well, as far as masks are concerned, because there's so many ideas about it, and I'm not a virologist, I don't claim to know. I tend to trust Dr. Fauci, so I call myself a Faucian. And some of my friends believe the whole thing was planned and it doesn't even exist. I call them the plandemics, and I don't judge them. They just, I have a friend of mine that he's never worn a mask. He's walked into many places that said masks were required. Sometimes they've thrown him out, but he's never put a mask on when they've asked him. He's very adamant about it. And I love and accept him. And I sometimes think of it a little bit like a cigarette. If you are smoking, a non-smoker might say, it's cool that you smoke. Can you please not do it around me? And I think that if you're a non-mask wearer, like a plandemic, and you hang around a Faucian, you might just want to, give them their space. Not that you're wrong or they're wrong, but I just think we could be respectful about our different religions on this. I named them three things. The Faucians are the namaske, and then the plandemics are the no mosques, and then the ones in the middle are some mosques, and so they're religions, and we need to respect people's religion. One of the things about being purple is being respectful and inclusive of the other people's religions, even if their religious dogma makes no sense to you. So purple is very broad. It just happens to focus on politics.
And what I think when I came across it is, I always felt like a business, if it's a privately owned business and they put up a sign and I can't come in without my mask, then I can't go in without my mask. So I'm going to put it on. I am not sure if they, protect me from anything. If it seems like we got some conflicting information, and, I work with children and their masks are down here, their masks are out here. And, I'm like, okay, I can't be very safe at this situation, but I'm also, as Doug will tell you, a rule follower. I don't like big government, but if I'm asked to put on a mask, I'm going to put on a mask. And especially, I think just being a person that, if I know that someone is afraid of this, pandemic or this virus, and they think that a mask is going to keep them safe, I'm not going to make them uncomfortable or afraid to be around me and, just spitefully not wear my mask. And even though I'm not sure, and I'm even more on the skeptical side of, I'm not a plandemic, but I'm on the skeptical side of how effective they are and how they're being worn, and how some of them, are made of sequins and different materials. I have found myself wearing them everywhere that I am asked to wear them. I don't wear them outside. The minute I get out of Publix, I'm ripping it off, basically because I can't breathe, not because I don't think they work. But I agree with you that I don't know either way. I think that it kind of goes into maybe a future conversation of what I think is with these lockdowns and how it's you see people telling you you must wear your mask, and then, they're caught not wearing their mask. And so then it's really, are you really afraid of it, and just trying to make me wear my mask? Or, if you're really afraid of it, then you should be doubled up, like Dr. Fauci was saying before. But I think that we both had agreed that I don't know is the best answer, because we don't know, and just being respectful of other people and private business, I do wear my mask.
Yes, I agree. I don't know. Really is it's a very humble thing to say. And I believe humility is important, especially when you're talking to somebody that has a different point of view.
Right.
I will say this, Angelina found a fantastic, guaranteed positive about masks. Every time she has a mask on, if she's buying liquor, they card her. So she said, who needs Botox? Just wear a freaking mask.
Love it. Let's go to something. I'd like the two of you to talk to each other about the 6th. That goes from something that the masks. You both have a pretty civil approach to it. To the 6th, where I think you got some pretty different opinions on it. So talk to each other about not only who's to blame for the 6th and what consequences should be about the 6th and how the media covered the 6th, but also the difference between, those riots and what happened during the summer. I'd like to hear what you all think about the insurrection.
Laurie? Armand?
I think this plays a lot back to, it's kind of like deeper than the 6th to me, is back into the whole election feeling that I watched every hearing about the election, and I heard people pleading with evidence. People say there's no evidence. You're a liar, is what we're hearing now. You are lying. There's no evidence. And people are like, we weren't allowed to see. We weren't allowed within 10 feet. They told us to show up here, and we showed up here. We saw people with military ballots that had not been folded, and they were just being shoved into machines, and 100% of the military ballots were for Biden. To me, that's a red flag. And I felt like there's no one, I think it was Michigan, that they were saying that the Senate, the vote tallies, they were saying they hadn't figured out that they were equal, but they went ahead, and the Senate went ahead and approved the electors. So it was, that's one of the first times where I felt like they just don't care, and I went to bed and Trump was winning, and I woke up and, Biden's ahead, and just, in these particular counties and these swing states where, I did notice election night that the counting just stopped. And I thought that was odd. A lot of odd things were coming across to me. And just listening to what I could hear from people in these hearings that were Republicans, Democrats, independents, people that had no reason to go in there and lie. In fact, their voices were shaking. I mean, you're up in front of like a board of elected officials who we should be in charge of, but you don't feel that way. And just saying, this is what I saw, or I'm an engineer, and I know that they were, I could tell, I've got pictures of how the machines were hooked up to the internet, and how horrible it was feeling. I felt for them, that they felt, and they came right out and said they felt like no one would listen to them, and they were pleading with their legislatures, because that's who makes the election laws. And so I was very much for, and I know we're trying to get to January 6th, but I want to kind of just explain my background. I was so excited that if this was going to happen, it was going to happen with a president like Trump, because I have lived under a President Bush, who Doug, that I love me some W, but he let things be said about him that I knew that were wrong. And that, the New York Times had a daily military death rate. Every day the numbers on. And then magically when Obama, became president, those numbers went away. It was stuff like that. And I would just be pleading with President Bush, get on the media, call the press conference and explain to the people what is going on. And he wouldn't do that. That was, it was above the presidency to, fight back. And, and I found that to be about Mitt Romney too, and kind of like the Republicans, they're too nice. And so I felt like, yep, you're going to do it. Trump's going to fight back. And I think that as a Republican person who has voted for the John McCain, who said, we're against Obamacare. Well, he leaves his deathbed to put the final vote in the coffin so that we can't, take away Obamacare. To me, like those are the people and the politicians, and I'm sure on both sides too, that, okay, you've lied to us and told me what I wanted to hear. And I finally, get a president that, yes, many people don't like. Many times he says things that, I'm like cringeworthy too. And I do feel like he used Twitter because a lot of times they would censor it, or if you didn't hear it firsthand, even if I heard the report of it, I didn't hear it. And so I'm kind of getting a rambling point of way that I was excited about being, in fact, I wanted to go. I wanted to go to the rally and voice my opinion. I think you both would say that I'm not a radical that would hurt anybody. I just wanted to be there as an American to say that I think that this has been stolen from us. I think that at the very least, we don't trust the system. And that everybody should be worried if you don't trust the system. If it causes people not to vote because our vote doesn't count anyway, there were enough irregularities, not from what Trump was saying, though that is what brought it to my attention, but from what I sat and I actually watched 3 to 4 hour hearings in all of and I just was shocked. Do I know if it was all true? I don't know. Do I know that some of them were blown off? Yes. Do I know that there are a lot of questions that even now, like Maricopa County refused, and I don't know why the election board gets that option, but subpoenas to give over their machines. And they finally decided that they would do that on January 20th. Stuff to that just makes, if it was your side, it just makes you just like cringe and you're angry. So on to January 26th, I am thinking that, and from my perspective, to me, it was positive that, people were, and you use fighting back and then people use it against you. I believe that most, if not all, people are fighting back, meaning using our voice, speaking up as, we have the right to do. I felt like the protests this summer were, completely stolen from George Floyd. I think everybody was horrified by what they saw. And then it turned into what I think are groups that kind of took over the people that were, his family was even pleading with the rioting to stop. And you have governors that are refusing to call in the National Guard. And you can see, CNN, I think it was the one who said, these are peaceful protests, and the whole city's burning behind them. And this went on for months and months. I think it was Portland where they had taken over like a block of neighborhoods that were, police free. And that was just the way it was going to be. And nobody kind of intervened is what I didn't feel like the people in charge thought it was a big deal, defund the police. But, I like the police. My sister, I shouldn't say this on a podcast. She hates the police. But not to the effect of defund the police. But then what happened on January 6th, from my perception, and again, I had been at work all day, so I only saw the bits and pieces. And at first I was shocked. And then obviously it was shocked. It was horrible. And when you read all of the incidents, there's never an excuse for violence. There's never excuse for anything of that. What crossed my mind, though, is when I started seeing, there was a person, I can't recall his name now, but he was said to be inside, being a journalist. And he's heard saying, I can't believe we got everybody to come in. Turns out he's a Black Lives Matter activist who is in jail. And I know that I knew the person with the horns, I guess he was a QAnon. Not any Trump supporter I've ever seen, And I just, and I saw police like moving the barricades and these people being, kind of told they could come in. And I kind of felt like people were burning down police stations and nothing was happening to them. The police, in some cases, were told to abandon their police stations. They were banging on the doors of the Kavanaugh in the Congress, outside the doors, banging on, just saying horrible things about Kavanaugh. And, I don't believe any of them got arrested. If they did, they were out. Now, again, nobody got hurt. I understand that. But they did get hurt out in the streets. They did get hurt in these no police zones. People were being raped. People were being murdered. The police could not get in. And some of those, testimonies from people who didn't even know their kid had been lying in there. I mean, they were heartbreaking for everybody. And I do believe everybody, both sides. So what really irritated me is that I heard the speech and there was nothing inciting, in my opinion. In fact, I heard it over and over. We're going to peacefully and respectfully or whatever, let our voices be heard, which is what I wanted, what I had been reading online that everybody wanted. Now I'll have to say I'm not a Twitter user. I'm not a big Facebook user. But it seemed like on a scale of what happened during the summer and the scale of the Capitol, before it happened, there were maybe, I don't know, tons of representatives that were going to object the electors. And I believe that's why those states sent both electors, because they've sent their Republican electors and their Democratic ones because they didn't want to decide. They didn't know. There was too many irregularities. And it is our right to object. In fact, 2000, the Democrats objected. 2004, 2005, I guess it would be in January, 2017. And, it was was not treasonous at the time to object. The reason that it didn't go further and why maybe now it's a bigger idea is they didn't have a Senate person to sign it. And you have to have a representative and a member of the Senate to let your objection go into debate, not even like get it caused out, but to cause the debate. So I had been excited that at least, all I wanted was there to be a debate, to go back and forth, to, at least examine some stuff that it didn't feel like had been even looked at. And it seemed within hours, they were all back into the, and of course, this is also before I saw a lot of the footage of the violence, but it seemed like it had been quelled. They were back in the building. And then all of a sudden, away from objecting to everything, we got Lindsey Graham, who I have been suspect for from, beginning of time, had come to respect a little bit. He's got this prepared speech that this is enough and we're not having this anymore. And this stops today. This stops today. And I just thought, well, then you just let the mob win. Why did that take anything away with whether or not the election was free and fair or without fraud? And I'm like, if it had been planned by Trump and called an insurrection, I don't think the president of the United States, which has a military that loves him, would send 200 people into the Congress as his insurrection. He could have had tanks. He could have had black op operators. I don't think that was his intention. And in 50 hours, without not calling a witness, without letting him have any due process, the House were up on impeachment again. And it was the 7th time they've called for impeachment on this president. And 19 minutes into his inauguration, they were calling for impeachment. So to me, it was like one of those cry wolf things that, okay, now this is just going to be a weapon that we can use. And then it came to be, the military woman, and I don't know much about her. I know that she was, you may know more, Armand. I don't believe she was armed. She was coming through and she was shot and killed. And then I never heard much of her name again on any news network. To me, that's a tragedy as much as, anybody. And all I heard were, the Congress people all upset. And to me, that shouldn't have won the day. that should have been something that those people were arrested. I think that they knew that this was coming. They had to know hundreds and thousands of people were going to be in the Capitol area. Capitol Police should have been better prepared. Not that they weren't prepared, but they should have had backup. National Guard maybe should have been there. I mean, I do think that Congress could have had people, you know, I think it would have been common sense, though. To be fair, I didn't think it was needed because I thought people were just going to go there and, you know, yell, you know, fight for our election or whatever. And then I was so upset with Pence, who very well may not have had the constitutional duty to, you know, throw them out. But he did have the, not duty or the rights or whatever, but he could have sent it back to the states. And that's where I think it belonged, because it was those certain states. And I totally took this to election. I'm sorry. I'm kind of wrapping this into January 6th. The Supreme Court not listening to Texas and all the other states. They've kind of like punted the football because they said that Texas didn't have any standing against another state's election rules. Well, in the Constitution, states against states can only be heard by the Supreme Court. And yes, if, you know, one state is cheating or there's irregularities, it very well does, you know, affect the other states who played by the rules. So that, you know, those were the things that I angered people, I do believe. But to say that to call it an insurrection, I think it was an attack. And to blame Trump immediately, I mean, that was the first thing out of the bat, where, you know, Armand and I have talked about, you know, that, you know, are we going to blame Bernie Sanders because, you know, when the protester is not the right word. It was a Bernie Sanders supporter. He was very upset that, and I did look it up. I guess Sanders had made some remarks that if we didn't go with universal health care, Americans would be dying. And it was something he said in the primaries, and he accused Clinton and he included all the Republicans, and that if we didn't take this, you know, Americans were going to die. If you look at the statement before the supporter asked which side of the softball practices were Republican, he yelled out before he shot everybody and shot at everybody and shot Steve Scalise, says this is for healthcare. Did I blame Bernie Sanders? No. Did anybody? Maybe, but it wasn't to the point where, you know, we need to put him on trial. And Maxine Waters getting up, and she was angry. You know, you need to get in these Trump officials' faces. If you see them in the grocery store, if you see them in a restaurant, you know, a lot of those people were harassed and, you know, had to leave with their, you know, little families with them, you know, because people were getting in their faces. Nobody said anything boo to her. So it kind of just felt like, again, you know, it's Trump. He incited this. It's his fault. And, of course, I feel horrible what happened in the Capitol. There's no way on earth anywhere, and I think you both know that I would say that it was right. I do not think they were all Trump supporters. There's video of Trump supporters, or which I think of what I normally see. They're like the old people on scooters, and some people, you know, with those stupid red hats, pulling people off and saying, this is not what we do. But then you do see them inside walking around. So, you know, some of them say they thought that they were allowed in. And when you look at all of the other things, people weren't arrested. I think they, you know, if people say come in and you go in, I'm not sure I would have, but I'm not sure that I wouldn't have if I didn't mean any harm. Now, once I hear gunshots or whatever, or if the police are telling me to get out, I'm getting out. But it's just very hard to me to know the thoughts of the people that were there, especially where the FBI had found that the pipe bombs were planted on the 5th. How can you blame Trump's speech? And why isn't it in the articles of impeachment? If the speech caused the incitement and the riot and the insurrection, it's not even in the articles of impeachment. And it was a planned event. And I just look at all the agitators that I think took over the Black Lives, people who mean like Black people with skin matter. versus I think the core unit that are, are made basically by 3 women that are Marxist. And I think that kind of got in the gray middle where you don't know who you're supporting. Am I supporting the party I don't agree with, or am I supporting the fact that, of course, Black Lives Matter? So I kind of felt like, okay, so what, were there agitators in there? And there's no discussion. It's treason. It's insurrection. It's Trump. And you can't even find a rational voice on networks that I like to look at. And, and I can't Google anything and find it. And then all of a sudden we're being censored. The president of the United States is off of Twitter. And I'm going to shut up and let Armand talk. But I mean, I could go on for, about Zuckerberg and things I think about that. But go ahead, Armand.
Well, my first question is, Laurie, why beat around the bush? Tell us how you really feel.
I've been known to hold it back.
Well, my first thought about all of that is we have a lot in common, believe it or not, around a lot of that. I'll share with you a few ideas that might be a little more polar, but do liberals cry wolf to where when something that I feel really does need attention seems a little vanilla because of it? Totally. I am not a fan of absolutism, just not. So when it was blaming Trump for the insurrection or whatever you want to call it, I tend to be okay with the word insurrection, just like I'm okay with the word looting and rioting in the Black Lives Matter stuff. Oh, it's a protest. Well, it was meant to be a protest, but there was a lot of looting and rioting, which took away. Now, the news that I watch, and I watch a huge variety, I like YouTube because I could see a 3-minute thing that CNN said, a 3-minute thing that Fox News said, a 3-minute thing that The Hill said, a 3-minute thing, whatever. And so I like to kind of look at those, but I heard a lot of comments over the summer about how, if anything, looting and rioting and burning, and of course Doug was there in Kenosha, so he sent pictures of the burning. It was obviously not a deep fake, as they call it, where they pretended like there was looting and rioting to make the liberals and the Dems look bad. It was horrible, and it actually hurts the cause. And I feel the same way about the Capitol storming. It hurts the cause. So I'm not I don't typically go like either extreme. Like I don't believe that that Trump is the reason for all that. I personally think he has some responsibility in that due to his rhetoric from the beginning, which is not so black and white. As far as the idea of there being non-Trump people that were involved in that feels feasible to me. As a matter of fact, I also have heard about 1 or 2 at least that were either related to Antifa or Black Lives Matter enthusiasts. I think I know which person you're talking about in particular because they did show it on one of the clips. I don't even know who shows what because I watch so many. I just put it all in my computer and then hit figure this out for me. And then my computer goes, okay, based on all that, I think this is what I believe. From the footage I have seen, and I've seen it presented by a lot of different news outlets, from the footage I've seen, I have seen some ushering, but I also saw a lot of barricade breaking down and a lot of attacks on police by whoever these folks were that went from the protest to the rioting. And it really looked to me like it was not a gentle invitation to go into the Capitol in most cases. Now, once they got there, yeah, I saw police standing on the side. Well, I love that most of those people that were in the Capitol had obviously been to Disney because they stayed in between the velvet ropes while they were insurrecting. Anyway, whatever. But so it's challenging for me sometimes when I see all this different footage And then I hear, and I'm not saying you said that, but then I hear Antifa and Black Lives Matter were really behind this, and they were pretending to be Trump supporters. Even though, I don't know, it could be true, but it didn't appear to be true to me. And so what really kind of turned me to be really pro counting the electors and electing Biden was not the different opinions on the thing, but it was kind of when folks like William Barr said something to the effect of, oh, here's the other thing I want to say. Again, the absolutes, there was no fraud. Come on. You know, there's some in every election. And, you know, that whole idea, there was no fraud. Was there enough fraud for there to be a potential to overturn what the voting and the electoral college said? I didn't believe there was enough. And William Barr and McConnell both said something to the effect of, yes, there is some. We don't perceive that there's enough to turn over the election. And so that kind of felt to me like there was enough evidence for that. All the different courts and all the different judges, I don't know if they were being fair. I really don't. It appeared to me that from what they saw and what was being presented, they didn't feel like there was a case, so they didn't want to hold it. But again, I really, really don't know. Did a lot of people, Doug and I had been hearing, and Angelina and I had been hearing for a few weeks, wait till January 6th, something big is going to go down. So it obviously wasn't a surprise. I, like you, Laurie, cannot imagine with all this information, especially from the QAnon people, this is going to be the reveal. The sealed documents are finally going to be unsealed, and we're going to be able to see, and people are going to be arrested for, treason, and not the folks that stormed, but the bad guys. And so to have the police as unprepared and as minimal as they were is just a travesty to me. Now, I will tell you a timeline that I heard. And again, I listened to all of it. I put it in the computer. Doesn't mean it's going to be right, but it's what I come up. The timeline that I heard was the speech happened somewhere around noon. By 2:00, they were storming the Capitol. And by 3 or 4, they were calling in the National Guard, and Donald Trump was asking them to leave and to go peacefully. I too heard the speech. Do I think that there were things that were said by a lot of different people in that speech that were not sensitive to the emotions that those people were feeling already? Because the Stop the Steal campaign had been happening for a while. Stop the steal, stop the steal. That had been going on for a while. And I have a little bit of an issue with the election was stolen more than I have with what you said. There's some evidence that there was some hanky-panky going on and that this could be fraud and unfair. Let's check this out, versus it was stolen. And I do recall that Donald Trump and his team, especially Donald Trump, said way before there was any electors, before there was any voting, if I do not win this election, it will be because it was stolen. And that kind of stuff scares me a little bit when I hear that, because I know what that does to people that might not be sensible, So that was my main challenge, is Stop the Steal felt to me to be dramatic, kind of like, if we don't do something dramatic, America is lost. And I also remember him saying, if you don't turn this around, this is from Trump, then you won't have a country anymore. Now, I know that's political jargon. That's, if these guys win, it's the end of whatever. But given the emotional state of folks that believe their livelihood and their home and their voice is stolen and they won't have a country anymore, I feel that it was irresponsible, at least around that. So that's where I stand on all that kind of stuff. And it does feel like an insurrection, especially when I hear the things they were saying, hang Mike Pence. And I don't know if you saw, but there was a gallows there. Somebody had put a noose up. There was a gallows, and, you know, kill Nancy Pelosi, and traitors will die, you know, things like that. That really did feel like an attempted coup or an attempted insurrection that obviously without military backup was not going to be finalized. So that's kind of where I stand on January 6th. I will say this. I think ultimately that was kind of like the lid blowing off the pressure cooker. And maybe as a result of that, we can find some sensible common ground and find a way to move on as a country, almost like that was a necessary evil, so to speak. But yeah, so that's my view on the whole thing.
I have to say, the last thing you just said, necessary evil to get us back online of unity. It makes me think of Biden calling for unity. And I do not think that an impeachment at this time is good for the country. It's just going to keep those, you know, almost 75 million people that did vote for Trump thinking that he's being attacked again. And when you feel like you're being attacked, then more people are going to be on your side. Nixon resigned, so there was no impeachment trial. I think it was Jeffrey. I mean, there were many people that I had just read this too, and I wish I probably did write it down, but this is kind of an unprecedented thing after someone's left office, and it feels vengeful, and it feels like, I want him to pay as much as he can, and I don't want him to run again in 2024, which I think that should be up to the American people, not up to Congress people that don't like him. And I believe that Mitch McConnell and the establishment people that say that were thinking we need to go back to business as usual because we have, Biden back. And I think that people on the sides of the aisle go with who they think the winner is. I think they gave up too early, which as a Trumper or a conservative, I felt like they didn't even fight. And I'm like, this man has fought everything for you. He went out and just in the irregularities that are just maybe circumstantial, but never has it been that the Democrats were supposed to win, I believe, 26 seats in the House. And we gained 17, we Republicans. And then normally that does not happen and the top of the ticket loses. And I do know that people are saying, well, because I think that I had said, you cannot tell me that Obama or Biden got more votes than any presidential candidate in the entire nation's history. He's just not that loved. I mean, if you look at it and, he couldn't get 1,000 people to watch his Thanksgiving address. And I guess now I'm getting nasty. Put up your yellow flag. You're
actually accurate. You can't put a yellow flag when somebody says something accurate. That was accurate. He couldn't get many people to watch his Thanksgiving address.
And I just remember, because my aunt is very, very anti-Trump. And she was saying that so many people hate Trump that they went out and they just voted against him. Well, I think that they might underestimate the hatred of not the person, but the politics of Barack Obama and how many people went out to vote for Mitt Romney. And we did not like Mitt Romney, and Obama still won. I mean, I think that people don't go out just to, I'm going to vote all Republican, but I'm going to vote for Biden. And then they found all these ballots that were just Biden, and nobody else was marked at all. And it's very hard to believe that just those particular counties in question, according to what was told in the hearings by signed affidavits, it's just those counties where he super overperformed Obama in the height of his popularity. And I may not like the things that Obama did, but I can't say that he was not a very popular president with the people who loved him. True. And he underperformed every other county in the nation that voted for Hillary, and she was not a liked candidate. A lot of people don't like Hillary. They wanted her to win, and I think that, you know, it was kind of like they just thought, I think Bernie Sanders won the primary, in my opinion. But, you know, it was kind of like her turn, and people didn't like that. We are not a monarchy, you know, and maybe that's, you know, and I think that they didn't think that people, I think middle America had really voted for him because we didn't feel like anybody was listening to us anymore. So I kind of look at those things and I'm like, just that alone. And when I listened to William Barr, I believe it was said, from what I have been shown and from what I have seen, I can't say there's enough fraud. The media went from, and I've heard this many times, no fraud, some fraud, not enough fraud to turn the election. Well, I'm just like, you know, put your cards on the table. What do you have to hide? I'm an American citizen. I should be able to go anywhere and you show me your records. And how some of them, they had an engineer at testifying at one of the hearings, and it was Michigan, I believe. And the tallies were coming up with percentages. Well, that doesn't happen unless there's a code or someone. And he was saying it could be either that the votes were flipped, which could happen just because someone made an error. So they, you know, oops, I put this in wrong, or the machines are calibrated a certain way. I also find it worth looking into that none of the votes went Trump's way. They all went Biden's way, the ones that they say that were flipped. And to me, that's a red flag. And Trump's votes went down. And even if Biden's go up, 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 and up, that shouldn't take votes away from Trump. So I'm just saying there was enough there to at least look into. And that is something that's going to be very hard to get over and the unity speech, when we have AOC saying things that we need a blacklist of everybody who worked in the Trump administration so they shouldn't have jobs. You know, he may say we want unity, but the other people aren't saying that they want unity. In fact, this new, I don't know if we're going to get into the, because I don't know much about it, the Robin Hood thing. I know that her and Ted Cruz have been fighting, but she tweeted, and this only goes to my fact about the unity in the election and, you know, what we should hope to gain from this. She was very mad against Ted Cruz. Robin Hood stopping trade over the GameStop situation, and that this needed to be there needed to be hearings. And Ted Cruz said, just pointed agreed. And her thing was, and I do have her whole thing, this is unacceptable. We need to know more about all of this. It's unfair. Financial Services Committee I'm on, and we need a hearing. Cruz says, I agree. And she said, while happy to work with Republicans on the issue where there's common ground, I will not work with one who almost had me murdered at the Capitol riots. Is that insightful speech? Almost had me murdered because he did his constitutional duty to oppose electors?
Let me think about that. The first thing I want to say is we're so much on the same page when it comes to Maxine Waters, which I agree with you. And I'm one of the few liberals that actually call out stuff like that. And I did. The minute she said those kinds of things, I put it on. I got killed because 80% of my Facebook page are liberals. I got killed. Like, you don't know what team you're on. And I'm like, dude, I'm on American team. I may be on the blue side, but I think it's even more important for the blue side to call out blue and more important for the red to call out red. So I did. So I think we're a lot on the same page as far as inciting and that is not good for our country. I'm not so sure that calling out Ted Cruz and Jim Jordan or any of the other people that were supporting the Stop the Steal movement that ended up threatening her life and a lot of other people, including the 5 that actually died. I don't think it's necessarily inciting to say, I'm not going to work with you. I'm still too shook up over that situation. I'm not agreeing with her or not. I'm just saying, I don't think it's the same situation as Rudy Giuliani saying trial by combat or those kinds of things, which are, you know, even Trump, when he said, I'm going to be right there marching with you. Well, he could have meant spiritually, you know, I'll have your back or whatever. However, it's still in that kind of tense moment. Any of this kind of stuff is dangerous to me, whether it be Maxine Waters. I'm not a big fan of AOC because I think she's part of the problem in a lot of ways, even though I'm sure she's got some great stuff too. So I'm not trying to put down any AOC fans. I think she's an American and she wants what's best, what she thinks is best, but I'm not a big fan of her style. So I think the bigger picture is not so much that we debate whether or not the election was stolen or not, because we don't really have much to say about it. These higher up people, this goes way above our pay grade. But what concerns me is what is going to happen in America based upon the right side of the field if and when nothing changes. In other words, the people in charge feel that Biden is the president, the same way they felt that GW was the president, even though they found evidence later that there was some hanging chads and some problem, blah, blah. But where are we going to go as a country? Not sure that you and I debating, I don't think it was stolen, well, I think it was stolen, does much good at this point, even though I totally understand why before the electors had been certified, why maybe not stop the steal, but can we look at this potential steal there? So that's kind of what I think about it. What concerns me and keeps me up at night is where are we going to go? Because I have people, I have people on Facebook that write to me and say, you have no idea what's about to happen, but this is not over. And that scares me a little bit, because the idea of this is not over, there's still people that are wanting to do something to overturn this thing, when it sure feels like the majority of America. I heard a statistic that 80% of Republicans believe the election was stolen. My research says that Republicans make up about 35% of the country. Democrats make up about 35% of the country. And then 30% are independents that are neither party. So if 80% of 35, that turns out to be about 25% of the country. 25% of the country believes that this was stolen. That sucks. That sucks that 25% of our country does not feel like our elections are fair. At the same time, 75%, and including Mitch McConnell and some of the other people on the right, have said, this is the way it's going to go, this election. What are we going to go to from here? Are we going to just try to work together, even given some of the hard feelings? Or are we going to keep riling up folks that are looking for an opportunity to start an uncivil war? That scares me a little bit.
I think that it's funny, the hanging chads. I made so much fun of, the picture of the one guy, looking at the hanging chad, but it was public. We could watch him looking for the hanging chad. And I think that might be the difference. Like nothing was done that we could watch. And I think that it goes back to where Biden's president, right? Unless, they prove him otherwise. And then I don't know what you're going to do. I don't know, one's Maricopa County saying they're going to audit themselves. And I'm like, well, if I audit myself, I'm going to tell you that I won, and, are they going to do it to independents? So if we have all of this now, what are you going to do with Biden then? And so I totally get what you're saying, but the hanging chad thing, the first time I saw that, another picture of him, I'm like, oh my God, I made so much fun of how stupid that was. It did end up changing Florida election laws. If you have, you're looking for good or bad.
Oh my God. Okay. So here we have something here, changing election laws. That's what I see would be the best thing for lefty and righty to get together and say, okay, you think that it was stolen. We think he's a legitimate president. the powers that be have said he's the legitimate president. It's out of our hands. Let's fucking change some voting laws. Let's get together. Let's as scary as it is to have 50 Democrats and 50 Republicans on the Senate, the beauty of it is it's not going to be overwhelmingly sweeping either way. Bipartisanship is going to be forced on the Senate in a powerful way, because otherwise, it's going to be difficult. So they're going to force to come, hey, let's try to come together so it's not 50 against 50 every single time. So I would say that's where we need to move forward, in my opinion, is, okay, accept what the powers that be have said, even if you want to continue to look for evidence that brought to light, that's great, but not from a standpoint of we get to get our evidence so we can overturn it. That feels to me like a bridge too far.
And that's why it should have been investigated before they certified the electors.
Okay. Remember, there are good people in the world. If you can't find one, be one. Let's make America civil again.
When they're right people, I don't know when they're wrong people. We're all different shades of humanity. I don't know when they're liberal people. I don't know when they're conservative people. We're all different shades of humanity. Let me tell you now, we are all the same. One race.
No politicians were harmed in the making of this podcast.
The Purple Evolution would love to hear from you. Please contact us by visiting thepurpleevolution.org. You can send us an email, post a comment, ask a question, make a recommendation or a critique on our webpage, become a patron, or even shop for Purple Evolution products and gifts from our store. We are just one click away. Thepurpleevolution.org. That's thepurpleevolution.org. We look forward to your visit.